I never thought I'd be the guy writing something like this, but here I am. My name's David, by the way, and I want to get this off my chest because I honestly don't know what to do anymore. I've been with my wife, Emily, for about 6 years now. We're not perfect, of course, who is? But I thought we had a decent, if sometimes turbulent, marriage. She's always been a bit of a bitch, bossy, quick to lie, and more often than not, she's got a sharp tongue. Still, I loved her, or at least I thought I did. About 3 months ago, I had to undergo a major surgery, something serious that kept me in the hospital for a while. I was supposed to be out for a few weeks, recovering at home, and during that time, Emily was supposed to stay supportive. She said she'd be there for me, help me heal. But as the weeks went on, I started noticing things that didn't quite add up. She was acting strange, more distant, more secretive. She'd go out with her friends unexpectedly, come back late, and her phone was glued to her hand. She'd keep it on silent all the time, and if I ever tried to look at her screen, she'd get defensive, brush it off with some snarky comment about privacy or how I was just paranoid. I was. I could feel it. Something was off. There were little things, her avoiding my gaze, her quick temper when I asked about her day, and her constant mentioning of her friend from work, Sarah. I knew she was hitting the town more often, but I didn't have concrete proof. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that she was hiding something. The worst part, I was stuck here, in pain, healing, and feeling more helpless than I ever had. It was frustrating, but at the same time, I just wanted to know the truth. One night, I came home early from the hospital. My recovery was slower than expected, and I was eager to get some rest. When I walked into the house, I noticed her phone was on the kitchen table, plugged in. It was unusual because she usually kept it on her nightstand. I hesitated for a second, but then, out of curiosity, I looked at her screen. I wasn't snooping. I just wanted to see if she'd left a message or something. That's when I saw it. There were texts, flirtatious texts, not just friendly banter. These were openly suggestive, flirtatious, filled with innuendos and outright sexual comments. The weird thing was they were exchanged with a number I didn't recognize. I felt my stomach drop. I was stunned, angry, and confused all at once. How could she do this to me? Especially now when I was vulnerable, trying to get better. I felt betrayed at every level. I took a picture of the screen with my phone, because I knew once I confronted her, she'd deny everything. I also saw that she was logged into her email, and there were more messages, pictures, all pointing to her having a secret affair. It was so blatant, yet she was still trying to lie her way out of it. When I finally called her out on it the next morning, her reaction was pure bullshit. She looked me right in the eyes, her voice dripping with sarcasm, and said, "You're crazy, David. You're imagining things. I don't know what text you're talking about, but I swear I didn't cheat on you. I wasn't buying it. I knew the truth. And I never felt so betrayed in my life. I couldn't believe she was actually lying to my face. She's the kind of woman who can lie convincingly, make you doubt your own senses, and somehow twist everything around so it sounds like I was the one losing my mind. I was furious, but I held myself back. I needed to be smart about this. I showed her the picture I took. Her eyes widened for a split second. Then she immediately put on her angry bitch face and started cursing me out about invading her privacy, calling me paranoid, and accusing me of being oversensitive. I told her I wasn't going to sit around and get played for a fool. I told her I knew everything, the texts, the emails, the secret meetings she'd been having. If she thought she could keep pretending, she was dead wrong. She scoffed, rolled her eyes, and then started to lie even more, claiming the messages were just joking, harmless flirting, and that I was overreacting because I was goddamn insecure. She even had the nerve to say, "You're recovering from surgery and this is what you're worried about. Get some help, David." That was the moment I realized her lies were just spinning wheels. She thought she could still manipulate me, even after I'd caught her red-handed. The thing is, I was so hurt, so angry, I could feel my blood boiling. I wanted to explode, but I forced myself to stay calm. I told her I wasn't interested in her excuses. I just wanted her to admit what she did. She sneered, and for the first time, she looked genuinely pissed. That's when I decided enough was enough. I needed to plan my next move. I wasn't going to let her keep pretending everything was fine. I knew she had a history of being a bitch with a sharp tongue and a way of twisting the truth. But I also knew I couldn't keep living in this fog of lies. I had to find out just how deep this thing went, who else she was talking to, how long she'd been cheating, and what her ultimate plan was. Over the next few days, I started digging. I got access to her phone more often, kept an eye on her email, and even installed a tracking app on her phone, very carefully, so she would notice. I was determined to get to the bottom of it. I also started reaching out to some of her friends, asking if they knew about her little affair. Turns out, she'd been sneaking around for months, meeting this guy, some surgeon named Mark, who she kept saying was just a friend. Yeah, right, and that's when I learned the worst. She had been seeing him secretly, and they'd been exchanging flirtatious texts, photos, and all the dirty details. She even told him about our marriage, how I was stupid and boring, and how she needed someone who could give her excitement. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. I couldn't believe she'd do this to me, especially not now while I was vulnerable trying to heal. I had to confront her again, but this time I needed to trap her. I kept the evidence on my phone ready. When I finally sat her down, I told her I knew everything: the texts, the emails, the meetings. Her face went pale, then red with rage. She denied everything again, calling me crazy and possessive, and accused me of spying on her because I was insecure. But I had enough. I told her I was done playing her game, that I was going to expose her lies and show the world she wasn't the woman I thought she was. That evening, I decided to make a move. I sent the screenshots of her flirtatious texts to her best friend, someone she trusted, and told her to decide if she wanted to be part of the lie or help me. Her friend was stunned, and I could tell she felt betrayed too. That night, Emily finally realized I wasn't backing down anymore. The fight was just beginning. After I sent those messages, I could feel the tension in the house turning into something darker. Emily didn't speak to me much after that, which was almost worse than the lying itself. She kept acting like she was the innocent victim, saying I'd gone psycho, and that I was crazy for snooping around. She even had the audacity to accuse me of trying to control her. Honestly, I was done listening to her bullshit. I knew the kind of person she was. She'd always been good at spinning stories and making herself look like the victim. But I wasn't about to let her manipulate me anymore. I had proof now, and I was determined to see this through. I started preparing myself for the inevitable fallout, knowing she'd deny everything and try to turn it around on me. I also reached out to a lawyer, just in case she decided to play dirty and escalate things. I wasn't planning to be the guy left blindsided by her lies. I needed to be ready for whatever she threw at me. One morning, she finally cracked. She burst into tears, claiming she didn't mean for it to happen, that Mark was just a distraction, and that she was sorry for hurting me. She said she'd been stressed from my surgery and that she just needed some excitement, some fun to get her through. But her tears felt fake, like a mask that barely covered her disdain and her contempt. I saw right through her. She also threw in some classic lies, saying I'd been distant, that I'd been accusing her of everything, that she was just trying to keep the marriage afloat. I let her talk, but I wasn't buying it. I told her I had enough. The pain of betrayal hit me hard, worse than the surgery I was still recovering from. I always thought she was the woman I could trust, but now I knew she'd been lying to my face for months. I felt the rage boiling again. How could she be so selfish, so malicious? I told her if she wanted to keep lying, I'd be done, because I wasn't going to be a fool anymore. That night, everything changed. I packed a bag, told her I was leaving, and that I needed some space to think. I knew I couldn't stay there and pretend everything was okay. I slept at a friend's house, and as I lay there, I kept replaying everything: her lies, the texts, her sneering face. The betrayal cut so deep. I kept asking myself how someone I loved and trusted could do this to me, especially during my most vulnerable time. The next morning, I woke up feeling numb but clear. I realized I had to make a decision. I could keep fighting for a marriage that was obviously broken, or I could cut my losses, move on, and rebuild everything from scratch. Honestly, I was leaning toward the latter. I'd been betrayed in the worst way possible, and I didn't see any way I could save this relationship. Not after what I'd found. It felt like my entire world had been turned upside down, and I was just trying to hold on to the last bit of myself that was still intact. That day, I told her I wanted a divorce. I didn't care about her excuses or her crocodile tears anymore. I knew I deserved better than this gut-wrenching deception. I'd been a fool to trust her, I'll admit it. But now, I was done being the victim. I'd take control of my life again, even if it meant starting over from scratch. I told her she could keep the house, keep whatever she wanted, but I was leaving, and I wasn't coming back. This whole thing has left me scarred, no doubt. But I've learned something important. Trust is fragile, and some people just aren't worth the pain. I guess I thought I knew her, but I was dead wrong. I wish I could say I feel relieved, but honestly, I feel hurt, angry, and a little lost. Still, I know I'm better off without her. I just hope someday I find someone who's honest, faithful, and doesn't lie through her teeth when she's caught. After I moved out, the silence in that house was deafening. I stayed with a friend for a few days, trying to process everything. The betrayal hit me harder than I expected. I kept replaying all the moments where I thought we had a real connection, and now I saw it was just a lie. The worst part, knowing she was out there, actively lying, cheating, and laughing at how I was recovering from my surgery, like I was some kind of fool. I couldn't help but feel a mix of anger and sadness. Anger at her for doing this behind my back, betraying everything we had, and sadness because I really loved her, or at least I thought I did. It was a gut punch realizing I'd been blind to her true nature all these years. How could someone I trusted so much turn into someone so cold, so manipulative? I kept asking myself if I'd missed the signs, if I'd been too naive, or if she'd just been hiding who she really was all along. During those days, I made a plan. I knew I couldn't let her get away with this. I had the evidence, the texts, the emails, everything. I wanted her to feel the weight of her own lies. I also knew I had to protect myself emotionally and legally. I started talking to a lawyer, getting my ducks in a row, and figuring out what my next steps would be. I wasn't planning to be just another victim. I was going to fight back. I also realized I needed to confront her again, but this time with a clear head. I sent her a message, telling her I knew about her affair with Mark. I told her I wasn't interested in hearing her excuses this time. I just wanted her to know I saw her for what she was, a liar and a cheat. Her reply was classic Emily. Denial, accusations that I was crazy, and again, trying to make it about me instead of her actions. She wrote something like, "You're just jealous and insecure. You're making this all up because you can't handle losing control." That's when I decided I'd had enough of her bullshit. I told her I had everything on my phone, and I was going to make sure everyone knew. The truth, her truth, not the one she kept spinning. I told her I was done wasting my time on someone who didn't respect me or our marriage. I wanted her to realize that her lies had consequences. I also made it clear I wasn't going to be a pushover anymore. I'd stand tall and get my life back. The thing is, she kept insisting it was just harmless fun, that Mark was just a friend, and that I was overreacting. She threw in the usual manipulative lines about how I was possessive and controlling, trying to paint herself as the victim. But I knew better. I saw how she looked at him in those texts, hungry, desperate for some excitement, some validation. And I felt sick knowing I'd been so blind. The more I thought about it, the more I realized I'd been clinging to a false hope. Hope that she'd change, that she'd come to her senses, that our marriage could somehow survive this mess. But I was fooling myself. She didn't love me. She only loved herself and whatever thrill Mark was giving her. What really stung was knowing I was just a backup, a safety net that she'd used and then discarded. So I started planning how to move forward. I told her I file for divorce and that I wanted nothing to do with her anymore. I wanted to start over, rebuild my life away from her lies and deception. It wasn't an easy decision, but I knew I couldn't stay in a marriage where trust was shattered beyond repair. I had to protect myself, emotionally and mentally. I wanted to be free from her manipulations and her bitchy, lying attitude. Looking back now, I realize that this whole experience has taught me a harsh lesson about trust and betrayal. I learned that some people are just plain selfish, and their actions will always speak louder than words. I also learned that I have to be careful who I let into my life. Not everyone wants to be honest and faithful. Some people thrive on lies, drama, and chaos. I'm still hurting, but I'm also trying to move on. I know I'll be okay, even if it takes time. I just wish her the best, alone, I hope, because I sure as hell don't want a liar like her in my life anymore. The days after I made my decision to divorce her dragged on in a blur. I was numb most of the time, just going through the motions. I'd spend hours replaying the betrayal, the lies, and the pain. Every time I thought about how she had used my trust and then thrown it away, I felt a mix of rage and sadness. I couldn't even look at her old texts without feeling sick. That whole episode changed me. I used to believe in honesty, in loyalty, and in the idea that marriage was sacred. Now I saw how fragile those things really are. I started packing my stuff slowly, carefully. I didn't want her to think I was doing it out of spite. I just needed to get out of that toxic environment. I also started legal proceedings, which was a mess in itself. She fought back hard, calling me all sorts of names, crazy, jealous, insecure, and tried to manipulate the process. She played the victim as usual, saying I was overreacting and that I was the one cheating, which was laughable considering what I'd uncovered about her. The worst part was the emotional roller coaster. I'd wake up feeling hopeful one day, and then the next I'd be drowning in despair. Every little reminder of her, her favorite mug, her perfume on the pillow, hit me like a punch in the gut. I'd sit alone and think about what I wanted from the future. Did I want to stay single forever? Did I want to find someone who actually deserved my trust? Honestly, I didn't have the answers yet. All I knew was that being with her after everything was impossible. One night, I finally sat down and really thought about what I learned from all this. It hit me that I'd been so eager to believe in her good side, in the woman I thought I knew. But deep down, I was just fooling myself. She was selfish, manipulative, and just didn't care about me. That realization stung more than anything. I'd wasted so much time and energy trying to hold on to a relationship that was already broken beyond repair. It was a wake-up call. I also realized I had to forgive myself for trusting her so blindly. It wasn't entirely my fault. Sometimes people hide who they really are until it's too late. I'd been naive, believing her lies, ignoring the signs, trying to fix what was already broken. But now I was starting to accept that I couldn't change her. The only thing I could do was learn from this and move forward. One thing I decided: no more secrets. I promised myself I'd be more cautious about who I let into my life next time. I needed someone honest, someone who wouldn't cheat or lie. I didn't want to go through this kind of pain again. I also promised myself I'd never let anyone treat me like a doormat. I deserved better. I deserved respect, loyalty, and love, not betrayal and lies. The divorce was finalized a few weeks later. Hearing those words, "the marriage is dissolved," felt oddly freeing. I still had wounds to heal, but I was no longer tethered to her, no longer under her spell. I could breathe again. I started going back to the gym, reconnecting with old friends and trying to find some sense of normalcy. It wasn't easy. Some nights I'd lie awake thinking about what could have been, feeling the pain of betrayal all over again. But each day I felt stronger. Little by little I was reclaiming my life. Looking back, I know I'll carry this scar for a while, but I also know it made me stronger. It showed me how far I can go when I hit rock bottom. It taught me not to trust blindly and to listen more carefully to the red flags. Most of all, it reminded me that I deserve honesty and respect, and I won't settle for anything less. I don't wish her ill, but I definitely don't want her back. I just want to rebuild, to find happiness again. That's my goal now, one step at a time. Now looking back, I realize how much this whole ordeal changed me, probably for the better, even if it doesn't feel like it right now. I've gone from being blindsided, emotionally shattered, to slowly reclaiming my strength. I wish I could say I don't think about Emily much anymore, but honestly, she's often on my mind. Not because I miss her, but because I keep asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I was so blind to her real nature. It's a bitter lesson, but a necessary one. What I do know is this: I won't let someone else's betrayal define me. I've learned to trust myself more, to set boundaries, and to be more cautious about who I let into my life. I've also come to accept that some people just aren't worth the pain they cause. Not everyone is honest or loyal. Some are just good at hiding their true colors until it's too late. Now, I see those red flags clearly and I don't ignore them. I refuse to be played again. This experience has taught me a lot about love, trust, and self-respect. It's also made me appreciate the simple things: good health, honest friends, and a clear sense of what I want from life. I can honestly say I'm starting to feel hopeful again, even if I'm still healing. I've realized that I'm stronger than I thought, and that I don't need someone like Emily to define my happiness. I can find it within myself or with someone who truly respects me. To anyone out there going through something similar, trust your gut. Don't ignore the signs, even if it's uncomfortable. Once trust is broken, it's incredibly hard to rebuild, and sometimes it's just not worth the effort. Be honest with yourself about what you deserve and don't settle for less. Protect your heart, but don't shut it down completely either, because in the end, there's always a chance to start over. I hope she's happy with her new life, whatever it looks like. As for me, I'm focused on healing, growing, and moving forward. I've learned that betrayal can shatter you, but it can also teach you how to be stronger, wiser, and more cautious in the future. I won't forget what happened, but I will use it as a lesson. I've got a long road ahead, but I'm ready to walk it without her. Without the lies, the manipulation, or the betrayal. Just me, my lessons, and a hope for a better tomorrow.